we're always in sync, and so much better when what's his name is in here. I keep forgetting the
Exactly.
third person.
We just got to
He's
keep
not
him
here,
in,
whoever he is.
in
Yeah, whatever,
Mexico, Nicaragua, wherever.
whatever.
But so today we thought we would talk about why clients quit
Mm-hmm.
and kind of how to address those things before it even becomes an issue. So there are three buckets of reasons why people end up quitting. And then Ren is going to share some fantastic examples of things that will help you kind of troubleshoot to fix.
Well,
So
hold on.
I'll be
Temper your
oh.
expectations, friend. Let's not.
I think you will be just fine. You'll be just
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
So I'll be curious to see what you think about these. So these I actually ran into from a book that I'm reading, the Williams Behavior book, and it totally makes sense. And so I'll be curious to see your thought process in this. So the first reason why people don't make behavior changes, and ultimately the reason clients are quitting is because they're not following through on a behavior change, is because they are, quote unquote, and I hate this word, but lazy. And we can
Mm.
talk about that a little bit. So I hate the word lazy because it tends to have this negative connotation. I know John loves to joke about like, oh, I'm lazy, da da da. But when it comes to our clients, I don't like saying, oh, it's because they're lazy. That feels too judgmental to me.
It feels wrong for a compassionate coach. Like it's
It
an ick
does.
factor to saying it. I don't like it
Yeah,
either.
yeah. There's something deeper, right? Like laziness is a symptom, not a true reason in my mind. But ultimately, it comes
Right.
down they're not interested in doing something, right? There's not enough interest
Mm-hmm.
or drive to do the thing. So that's kind of the primary bucket. Then there's because they are confused, and I think
Mm.
that's probably a really big one that we'll tackle here in a little bit, that they're interested but
Yes.
they're unsure of what they should be doing. And then the last one is because they're scared. They're interested but worried about moving forward and whatever this change
Man,
is. Does that feel
that
like most of the things that you see kind of fit into those
yes.
buckets?
That so it's interesting because Amber and I we knew what we were going to talk about relatively. We hadn't shared I shared some notes with her at the beginning before we started recording. She didn't share any notes with me. But it's ironic that the things that I wrote down sort of sort of fit in under those three umbrellas because I wrote down maybe the points at which your client quits on the most ideal follow through for you as a coach in your business. So clients quit in terms of showing up, but they also quit in terms of things that you want to get accomplished. Whether it is, excuse me, whether it's you're trying to get them into your program, right? There's a quitting point that can happen there. Whether it's that much that much talked about week 3, week 4 period, there's a quitting opportunity then, whether it comes to renewing with you, right? There's another opportunity to quit there. And even in the context of getting a testimonial, a lot of us live and die by the great word of mouth that we get that we're able to share. There's a quitting point there. And what Amber just said that I didn't know she was going to say today really fits into those 4 stages. So she's sort of got like the psychological reasons, and I'm looking at the stages at which those things might come up. It's like peanut butter and jelly time. Who knew that we're going to
Yes.
make a
Peanut
delicious
butter and
midday
jelly.
snack as we
They
go through
just
this
work so
podcast?
well
So
together naturally.
yeah, it's like ham and sugar.
Oh,
I didn't know what to say. I
hamsters.
didn't know ham and cheese and ham. So so it's interesting. So here's what I see a lot in onboarding, Amber. Like, and when I say onboarding for the listeners out there, I'm just talking about getting your client off to a good start, right? Because we've all of us have coaches that have had some client that we just had a really shaky start with, and honestly, the shit just never recovered. Like it
Mm-hmm.
started downhill, it kept going downhill, and now we're Now we're in that bottom place where the core memories go to die, where Bing Bong was. Um, and
Oh, ping pong.
yeah, and we don't want our clients getting down to where Bing Bong was, right? Because
No.
it's problematic. So here's what I'm thinking, Amber. So with the onboarding, maybe we can look at an example of each sort of the reasons for quitting that you like. I'm sure if we think hard enough, if we use our thinking caps, there's a confusion
Mm-hmm.
situation in each one of these four stages. There's probably, what was the other one? A fear,
Uh, Scared. Yep.
scared situation,
And
and what was the third one?
quote unquote
Lazy,
lazy.
lazy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. So I'll take that. So what's your thought here about the onboarding process? I know one of the confusion ones. I can let that one rip, and how sort of get ahead of it. Um, Anything you want to interject before I try to make this thing fit together?
Yeah. So we can probably go through each bucket for each kind of
I think
scenario.
so.
So if you
Let's
want
do
to
that.
start with, yeah, so if you want to start with confused, because
Yes.
that's probably the biggest one out of the
Yes.
three. So tackle that.
Yes. Yes. So we're looking at onboarding, that stage, an opportunity for a client to quit. And confusion is a big issue here. And I didn't realize how big of an issue it was, and maybe we suggest this podcast at the end, until we did the how to never lose a customer again one. And then went and read that book by Joey, what's his face, Joey Dudestein. I don't
Fine.
know what his name is. Um, Hats off to you, Joey, whatever your last name is. Um,
Joey Coleman. Okay.
okay, Joey Coleman.
I
That's what I said.
for I have a terrible memory, and the fact that I remembered that super random, I'm very proud of myself. I'm just gonna
That's
have a
amazing.
minute.
That's
It
amazing. Yeah,
is.
you
I
have
don't
take a
remember my
second.
childhood growing up, so the fact that I remember that is
Take a
big.
second for yourself, Amber, and celebrate because that was phenomenal. But not too
Yay.
long because we're
No.
on Goodman's time. So confusion. Here's what I've done to get ahead of that. I have now instituted an orientation week for all of my clients. So I give, because of the confusion that they might interact with, and really because of the fear, and there's a lot of anxiety. You'll get those. Here's what happened to me. I had a lady that quit after she paid, asked for a refund because she missed a button in the app, and what was supposed to be sent to me wasn't sent to me. She threw up her hands and she said, "I told you I'm no good at this tech stuff, right? Out of here."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, this sucks badly for me. Uh, I was hoping to get a new Optimus Prime Transformer toy because I like Optimus Prime and Transformers. Who doesn't? G.I. Joe's
Valid.
close second place. But that was my Optimus Prime Transformer money. Now I don't have anybody from Megatron to fight. Right, it's a big deal in my world. So that didn't happen. But I realized, how can I get around this in the future? So I instituted an orientation week. I have a 7-day window at the beginning of all my programs where we're, for lack of a better term, dress rehearsing, right? I tell them
Mm-hmm.
we're going to have a 7-day dress rehearsal and the show opens the following week. So you're going to get to push all the buttons, make all the wrong decisions, launch a nuclear warhead, whatever you need to do over that 7 days.
I
And by
love
the
it.
time we get to our opening show, you'll be an old veteran of the stage. And that is something that's helped me get out. I've never had that issue since. Um,
I love that.
it's
Because
been very helpful.
because a lot of coaches, and because this is something that we teach in the online trainer academy, is kind of that welcome packet. Like, okay, great, you've joined, this is fantastic,
Mhm.
here's a massive PDF of everything that you need to know,
Right.
that we fully expect you to sit an hour and read
Yeah.
all of this, 10 size font, single space,
Right.
stuff, and consider that onboarding, right? And so I love that you're actually physically giving them the opportunity to play, because everybody learns differently, right? Like, I
Everybody
can't
does.
read a bunch of stuff. That doesn't work for me. I have to hear it while I'm moving for me to retain
Right.
stuff. And so for them to physically get to do it with no negative repercussions,
No
I think is
loss.
massive. Yeah.
No loss.
Such a
And
great way to boosts their
They
confidence.
they love it because if you think about it, and I love that you said the welcome kit, right? Because we feel, and this covers the lazy part of this
Mm-hmm.
step too, because we feel like, well, they've wanted to make all these changes. How dare they not set aside a couple of hours to read my 25-page,
Mm-hmm.
you know, welcome kit that I
All of the
expertly
answers are
brand.
right there.
Yeah, they're right there. Why don't you just read all of it, understand it, and interpret it and change your life? Well, if they could do that, hello, they probably
What would
wouldn't
they
be
need you
hiring a
for?
coach for this area of their life, right? And it's so easy to simple it's so easy to perceive something that you're an expert at as simple. Like John talks about it all the time here on the podcast, right, Amber? Like, you don't think you should be paid a certain amount because exercise is easy to you. Why would somebody pay for it?
Yep.
Well, you take somebody that doesn't do this for a living and give them a 25-page ebook, basically, uh, about all
Brain
the
melt,
things that they already don't understand,
full of
and then leave
jargon.
them to, yeah, and then leave full of jargon, and leave them to their own devices because they start tomorrow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nightmare. So it's a car crash waiting to happen. Um,
Yep.
any other
I
thoughts
love
about
that.
that one, Amber?
Um, let's see. That was for the confused. I think you can
Confused?
also add in the. You know that they have a lot of questions, and sometimes it's hard for them to really articulate, the
Yes.
questions, and so you won't always be able to address it right away. But
Hmm.
listen and start keeping like track
Yes.
of those early stage questions, and see if you have opportunities to get ahead before they become a question. So you won't
Yes.
get this, right out of the gate, but pay attention for whatever kind of patterns are happening.
I'm so glad that you said that. That's super important. The other thing that I do is, so I'm on text messaging basis with all of my clients, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
controlled text message. It's a Google Voice number. It's not my actual
Yes.
phone number, so I can shut it
Smart.
down when I want to. Listen, we could do another podcast about boundaries because Amber and I are
Yes.
both horrible at that. Because we're touchy
That's why
feely
we talk
human
about it so
people.
much. Yeah.
Right, right. That's why we talk. Right, but the other
You feel
thing that
like
I
the world
do,
is melting at 3 a.m. Call me. It's fine.
and Amber's up. You just send her a text.
I am.
She'll
I'm
answer.
up.
Not anymore because she's made some
Not
shifts in her
anymore.
boundaries. That's right, and I
I
and I
know.
love I love not seeing you all over the internet all the time anymore, Amber. I'm just like, thank God. I see a question and I'm like, Amber probably answered this, and I scroll in our group and like, nope, nope, she hadn't even seen it. Thank God.
Nope. Yep.
And then I answer it poorly. But what I wanted to say is those 7 days of that orientation week, I have pre-constructed messages that I text to my clients all
Hey.
7 days.
Love
So
it.
they'll get day one. Today in the group, you'll see this. Today in the app, you'll see that. Today you can contact me this way. And because of my personality type, there's a picture of me when I was like 4 years old. I've got a little tiny afro, and I'm in
Such a cute
a
picture.
yeah, it's an. I was much more adorable then. I think we can both agree. Like, I grew out of it, but at one point I was adorable. But and it's Little Ren, and it said, "I'm Little Ren. I'm going to show you how to get started with this program until Big Ren takes over next week." And it's just every day over 7 days, they're going to text message that explains what's happening, how you can navigate things. There are YouTube links to videos that I've shot to teach them how to do things Loom style videos like Amber is so good
Mm-hmm.
at. Um, and that confusion that dissipates the confusion, also reduces the anxiety, and with the laziness piece, if we're going to use that term, it
Mm-hmm.
just makes it easier for them to get the information.
It
It's
breaks
an
it down.
effort. It's just an effort to
Mm-hmm.
read a freaking PDF. Like, I literally don't. If someone gave me a 25-page PDF today for, I don't see me getting
Nope.
to it. Right? I'm
Mm-mm.
I'm crashing into whatever that. I'm barely prepared for this. Um,
Nope.
I digress.
The the
Any
last part for this, I think, is the scared, right? Because
Yes,
people assume that they just signed up, so they're super excited. Yes, but they're also scared witless. Like
yes,
it becomes this, oh, I just spent all of this money on a thing that I've tried on my own so many times. Then that internal dialogue starts happening.
Yes.
What if, I fail like I have all of these other times? What if my family and friends don't support me? What happens if I do succeed? Why,
Right.
my life will be different than it is right now, and am I okay with that?
Well, that's a big
So
one.
they have all of these, things that are going on in their head, and kind of like the woman that you mentioned with the tech stuff. She already had it in her head. She had
Yep.
this firm belief she was bad at tech, and as soon as she confirmed her own thought, she threw up her hands and said, "Fuck it, I'm done."
Shout.
Right? And that was a fear, and she used that as a way to get out because she was
Yes.
afraid of confirming she was not good at this tech thing. And so if
Man.
you know what they're scared of, again, you can get ahead of it by incorporating like what you did with the onboarding.
Man, that's such a good point. I love what, and we're going to see this in week 3 as we go to the next one. But I love what
Mm-hmm.
you said about the fear of succeeding, because I don't think
Mm-hmm.
coaches really get that. They don't understand the psychology of how frightening it is for so many of the people that hire us to actually accomplish what they're doing, what they're trying to do. It's something that we have to be aware of. So can we move on to the next sort of
Yeah.
quitting
Yeah, because
point,
this
which
is my
is
favorite.
this is one of my favorites too. The week 3
Yeah.
obstacle,
Yep.
the week 3
Fuck it
hurdle.
week.
Fuck it week. Like, um, you expand on that, Amber. You tell us your perception of what that week is, and
Oh, fuck it week.
yeah, it
So,
happens.
because every client, no matter how hard you tell them, sustainable, little changes, it's not going to happen overnight, but they cannot help themselves, and they go balls to the walls and white knuckle their way through everything they can. They work
Hmm.
too hard, they eat too little, they're making decisions that are too difficult to be sustainable for them,
Yes.
in hopes that they're going to see progress faster. And then week 3 rolls around and they're tired, they're hungry, they're sore, they're unhappy. And they're
Right.
like, fuck it, I hate all of this, I am done.
Just generally
And we know
unhappy.
that every single one of them does it. And despite it being everything we told them not to do, they cannot help themselves, right? And we do it too. It's just human nature. You tell us to do something, we want to do the opposite.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, we do the same thing in our businesses. So we all have
Yes.
our version of doing this. But fuck it week is around the end of week 3 when they kind of start to, like, the excitement wears off and they
Hmm.
realize that they don't feel as good as they had expected. They're not seeing, these unrealistic expectations that they were expecting, even though we told them not to. And so that's fuck it week.
Yeah. It's it is a it's a train wreck that's been slowly building speed, right? And just somewhere around week 3, when they're like the railroad people, they just lift,
Mm-hmm.
they like it's like they push over the light that tells you that there's another train
Yep.
coming, and it's a head on collision. And there's so much of those 3 things in there. Maybe the least of it's the lazy piece, right? And Amber, I'll let you expand on that. But it's definitely the
Yeah.
fear and definitely the confusion, because it's
Mm-hmm.
long enough to not be new, but short enough to not have the determinable results that they think they should have. I'm using air quotes with my fingers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the thrill is gone. Honeymoon's over,
Mm-hmm.
right? Honeymoon's
Yep.
over. So I'll tell you what I say, and then
Yeah.
please expand, Amber, and take us through the psychology of it, with the fear and the laziness and the confusion. What I like to say at the end of week 1, when everything's amazing, everything's fucking awesome at the end of week 1. Particularly for me, you've done an orientation week, and then you
Yep.
got through week 1, which is really sort of week 2. Um, and I've given you information you've never had before. You've probably done more
Mm-hmm.
exercise than you've ever done before, and you're feeling good. And I have my check-in call, and how's it going? Oh, Ren, it's so awesome, and I never did this and this, and then my husband said it. Like, everything's a party. And then I'll say, I want to talk to you about the future. And they'll say, what? And I'll
Get the
say,
crystal ball out.
yeah, let me get the crystal ball out. You're doing great now. Energy's high, and I love it. I don't want you to depend on this type of energy. It probably won't sustain. As a matter of fact, somewhere around the end of week two, beginning of week three, you may find yourself feeling a little bit more rebellious, right? It's like the terrible twos, but it's week three, or like being a teenager. Emotions are
Yeah.
going to rise. You're going to feel like everyone's jerking your chain. Nobody knows
Hmm.
anything except for you. Like you're effectively a teenager after week three. And
Yep.
if you've ever raised a teenager, and most of my clients have because I work with moms, I say, do you ever notice that no matter what you say, it's the wrong thing? And usually they'll
Hmm.
say, "Oh, I know exactly. So I've given birth to a daughter who is the second coming of me, Rand. I know exactly what you're saying." And I'll say, "Just be prepared for a little bit of that. I'll be here to support you, but I want you to be aware." That's sort of my talk about what we can expect
I
on
love
week
it.
three, and it's super important for me to have that talk at the end of week one.
Yep.
I want they can receive it better when the energy's high. I think,
Yeah.
but I defer to Amber.
100%.
What are your thoughts in terms of the psychology and how what you brought to the table today applies to the week three of it all?
Yeah. So you mentioned that the lazy concept kind of felt maybe like a little bit fuzzy for you here. And so that's why I
Yes,
don't like the word lazy being used
right.
here, because it's not laziness, it's a lack of interest
Mm,
ultimately. And
that
so
makes
the
sense.
problem is that they are not necessarily interested in your method,
Right.
right?
They
Or
oh
because it's
bingo.
or the lizard brain is doing two things. I want to do what I want to do, and because you told me to do it this other way, I really don't want to do it that way. And because they have all of this other bad information that they've gotten, or good information but bad for them,
Mm-hmm.
they want to do what they want to do, and we have to let them get it out of their system. But they're there because there was no initial actual interest
Mm-hmm.
up until that point, right? And so
Right.
if there's no interest in doing it that way, then of course they're not going to do
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah.
But they're not going to tell you that, because they feel like people are weird. They're not
Yeah.
great at confrontation. So that's where the lazy, quote unquote lazy, kind of stems from in this space, I
Mm-hmm.
think.
I see it.
Um yeah, but confused. I think confused is probably massive
Yeah, that's
here.
the obvious one for me. That's the obvious choice. See what I did there, John? You're welcome.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've done all of the things. I've worked harder and cleaner than I have ever in my life. I've been getting, 8 hours of sleep, and I've done all of the
Yes.
right things. Why isn't it
Yes.
working? And so that's the confusion,
God, yes.
right? And then scared. If I worked this hard and I
Mm-hmm.
still didn't get results, what's wrong with me?
Right. Ah, that's so
Why
good.
am I not getting the thing I worked so hard for? And so, what's really interesting about these kind of three buckets to me is that they can all be happening simultaneously or back to back, and it happens throughout their journey, all throughout. It's not
Mm-hmm.
just at the beginning or at the end. It's all throughout that you're kind of contending with these different things, and often they're kind of together.
Mm-hmm.
Like Inside Out, you can feel more than one thing at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So those are, from my perspective at least, where those kind of fit in to this. Because I think if you look at it through those three buckets, okay, what are they confused about at this time? I
Mm-hmm.
know Fuck It Week happens for my clients. What are the possible things that they are feeling or thinking that leads to confusion or laziness or being scared? And that just kind of
Yes.
helps us think through how to problem solve those things. And then later I can share, if we have time, and a way to kind of figure that out.
Shit, I hope we have time because I want to hear that. I'm learning a lot here today. So here's what I found, and you tell me if you found the same.
Mm.
I've found that so much of that can be dissipated by actually having the conversation. Like when I have the conversation, it usually solves a lot of things because the client will, a lot of times in week three, they will like you come off like a soothsayer, like a magician, and they say, "Ren, oh
Mm-hmm.
my gosh, you were so right. I woke
Yep.
up Monday and I
Angsty.
was so angry when I looked at the workout, Ren. I was just so angry. But then I thought back to what you said, and I said, Ren said this will happen.
Yep.
Um, that kind of awareness gives you so much, uh, it creates so much mystique in the mind of your client that you are some type of psychic healing, all knowing being.
Well,
And
it
it
creates trust and
that was
confidence in you as a host,
took the words out of my mouth.
because that's it. Yeah.
I was literally, please continue, but I was literally about to say, which creates trust.
Hmm.
That's such a great point. Um, have we beaten that horse to death? Should we move on to the next thing?
Yeah, I think we're good for that one. Let's,
All right,
yeah, hit the next
we're at a good pace here.
situation.
This is going well. You never know, but I think we're doing well here. I mean, you just don't
I'll
know what
knock
you're
on
going to
wood.
get.
It's still a
I
little
mean,
early, but
generally we don't know what we're going to get, but when John's not here, we really don't know. But it's usually better. I think we can agree to that.
yeah,
So
there you go.
the next place where we see a lot of quitting, and I get a lot of questions about this in the Online Trainer Academy as a one-to-one mentor, renewing. Like some of our students really kind of struggle with the concept of, if I'm doing a 12-week thing or an 8-week thing or a 15-week, what happens after that? And they sort of paint themselves into a corner where now they've got to have this grand, unique, unusual conversation that's not congruent with how they've been dealing with the client up to that point. So the client gets sort of hyper aware and their sales anxiety rises. And if you've learned nothing else from listening to our podcast here, our little show here, a little shindig, this little thing that we're doing, um, we hope that you understand that you never want your renewal conversation to be an odd conversation. You don't want it to be an
Mm,
unusual talk, a one off talk, a
unexpected.
conversation that's not in line with what you've been doing. So I've got a few things that I think about here in terms of getting out in front of the renewal conversation. Number one is I like to normalize the renewal. You guys know that from me talking about it here regularly. Every time a client renews, I share it on social media. I absolutely share it in the context of my client group because I want people
Hmm.
to see that more often than not, people are renewing. And I don't know why not many coaches talk about people continuing, because to me, it's a bigger flex than selling people. Like, sell anybody anything once. If they're coming back, something must be working. I don't get a lot of response to those posts, but I do get a lot of reward from those posts in terms of people
Hmm.
will come in and sort of ask to renew before they're even done. The last lady I had do this, we were 2 months into a 3 month program. She said, "Ren, can I do 9 more months right now so we can complete a year?"
Hmm.
Heck yeah. I didn't have a renewal conversation with her, but she
Yep.
saw renewals happening. So that's the first sort of upfront methodology to
Yep.
head that off before you get to it. The second thing I do is normalizing the end of month conversation. At the end of, or end of phase, however you want to put it, at the end of each phase, have a conversation. It's the same conversation all the time. So we've ended this next phase, Sheila, and I just want to check in and see, you know, is there anything that you'd like me to stop doing here? Anything that doesn't feel like it's great for you? Fuss at me a little bit. Like, really let me know. Which, by the way, is how I got to the orientation week, having that conversation with the
Hmm.
client. She said, it'd be nice, Ren, if there was a week where you could sort of get acquainted. And I was like, well, shit, thank you.
Brilliant.
You should probably save my business. So I'll ask first. I'll ask first because I want to get the note from a sales perspective. If there's going to be a negative response, I don't want it to disrupt the stream of positive responses. And I know the next questions are going to
Yes.
be positive. So always ask your negative first, sales dogs out there. But what don't you like? What can we change? How can where are the opportunities for improvement? Fuss at me a little bit. And clients like that. And they'll say, oh, I didn't like this. And then if you, okay, great. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, now tell me what you love so far. What's really working for you? Okay, perfect. And then I'll say, let's take a look at what you were trying to get accomplished and where we are now. Checkpoint. You wanted to do this, you wanted to do that, you wanted to be more consistent. Oh my gosh, you worked out 3 times a week for the last 4 or 5 weeks. That's amazing. Did you notice that you made that progress? And what? Oh no, I didn't. That's
Hmm.
great. Let's celebrate that. What are we going to get accomplished next month? Right? Into another positive. And they'll tell me, or next phase, or however your phases work. and they'll tell me, well, the last month I have the same conversation. I just assume on that fourth question that we're going to keep going. And I'll say the same thing.
Yes.
It's normalized. They expect to give me that feedback. And at the end of month 3 of a 3-month program, I'll say, so what would you like to get accomplished next month? Right. And they'll just tell me, because they've been telling me for the past 2 or 3 months, I'm not ahead of the renewal process. They'll tell me and I'll say, okay, perfect. Well, it looks like we've gotten to the end of the first term, but we can get those goals accomplished. Let's talk about, is it okay if we talk about how we can keep you going? Right. And they'll say, yeah. And I'll say, well, here are your options. And I give them a closing question. So option A, you can do this. Option B, you can do it. Which one's going to work best for you? And they freaking renew, because why wouldn't they?
Mm-hmm.
Been out in front of it. So you've also got the fear, the laziness, and the confusion. If you do it wrong, I'm going to hand that ball off to Amber and let her talk about some stuff. You're up.
Yeah, I mean, they're all there, right? And so you're getting ahead of the confusion
Mm.
and interest and being afraid with posting about renewals. Because if they don't understand that other people do this and what it looks like when they do, then that creates resistance automatically.
Mm-hmm.
So you're generating interest because they see other people do it. FOMO kicks in, right?
Yeah.
You're eliminating confusion by sharing the fact that other people are doing it. And you're eliminating the fear of what will happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then during the call itself, it's just muscle memory. They're used to it. There's nothing unexpected that can create confusion. There's
Right.
nothing that can create a fear based on that conversation layout that you just had. And hopefully there's no laziness, because it doesn't require anything of them other
Nothing.
than just confirming, because it's something they're
Nothing.
already doing. There's no new behavior that we're requesting of them here.
That's so true. The last thing that I want to do is challenge that laziness by having them do some other odd, unusual, additive thing.
Mm-hmm.
You got to set a
'Cause it makes them
different
think
phone
too
call,
much.
or fill out a different form, or any of that. Don't worry, it's easy peasy. I'll take care of all of it. I'll send you the link.
Yep.
Click the link, and that will for me. I'm subscribing people through PayPal. I'll send you the PayPal link. All you got to do, one click. Your information is already in there, and it'll keep you going. Right? I just
Yep.
that laziness piece is something that I hadn't really considered before, Amber. It looks like I accidentally have been working around it, but I wasn't really aware of it. I've got some other things that I like to change based on that information that you've given me. So good show so far. Good show so far.
Hey, yay! I mean, because every additional step they have to take creates resistance.
Yeah,
just
that's
a
a
little
problem.
bit, even if it's just a half a percentage, right? But
Yes.
every additional step, the more time that they have to think about things or try to figure things out, you're going to start losing them. And it turns into compounding interest in a negative way,
Yes.
So we want to remove as many barriers as we can. And the whole idea of today is, how can we get ahead of it so that we were not allowing that to happen in the first place, which results in them quitting.
And that leads us gently into sort of one of the final quitting points that we see in terms of the overall business. We see people ask about testimonials quite frequently in our groups, because we know in a social media space, and obviously even if it's not social media, you just have a website for your in-person business. People want to see that people are having success or speaking highly of what you do, so it can give them comfort. And here's how I feel about testimonials. I sort of feel like if there's too big of a to do at the end for those, it could be problematic too. And the way that I get my testimonials is also factored into what I just talked about, because that same call where I'm asking about what do you think could be improved, what do you like, how do you feel about what you've accomplished so far. First of all, I like to do that particular call. I like to do the end of the month call. I like to do it by Zoom sometimes. Normally I do it on the phone, but I'm taking meticulous notes, right? And I will summarize the things that they say. I'll say, so if I'm understanding correctly, XYZ, XYZ, XYZ. Um, and I'm keeping those notes with my client's file so that it's easier for me to go back to. And so I have some concurrent month one, month two, month three positives that I can look back on. Because here's what I'm going to do for that testimonial. I'm going to write it, right? I'm going to write it with the information that I have. I'm going to paraphrase, and I like to send it to my client for approval and ask, is it okay for me to share this? And I can see now that you've awakened the sleeper in my mind, Amber, I can see how this feeds into that laziness part. I'm not going to steal your thunder, though. I'm not going to say anything about it.
Nope.
But
you go for it.
No, I won't do it. Not with that fresh hair, Amber. Not on your life.
I know, right?
So hair is very fresh. For those that can, I hope you're watching this so you can see the luxurious sheen and precision cut
I got to
Amber's
shower.
hair today.
It was so
Yeah.
nice.
It's very showered Amber is probably my favorite Amber now. I just want to throw that
Me
out.
too, frankly.
Good for you, Amber. You deserve a shower
Mom life.
sometimes. But so I've got another. It's right there built into the other process for my testimonials. And if you've worked with a client for about 3 months, you get pretty used to their voice if you're paying attention. I don't claim to be a Jonathan Goodman level writer, if in fact he did write those books. But it's up for debate. We'll circle back around to that another time. But I do understand my clients well enough to write simply in their voice, but also to get the point across of what I need to get across in terms of a business person. And you get better at that, right? You get better at it. And then I send it to them. And oftentimes when I send it to my clients, I'll say, hey, I'm going to write something up. Is it okay if I send it to you for approval? I'd love to share it if it's okay. Oftentimes when I write it, the laziness dissipates and they'll get involved, right? They'll say, oh, I want to change something that you said here. Or I want to write, Ren, can I write more? Dream, please, yes. Write more. But the fact that you've extended the effort first to save them the effort usually is going to work better for you than just asking them in the middle of their busy day when there's a 3-year-old hanging off their leg and a 2-year-old hanging off their arm.
And they have to remember.
They got to remember.
That's the problem. They have to go back, and they're not going to. And then
they're not going
they're in logic mode.
They're not going to.
Right. And so what I love about what you're saying is you're catching them at various stages of the process. And so you're getting authentic, in the moment answers that you can pull from. So a long time ago, I don't remember the question. Maybe you do. Remember when we had Carolina on the show and she did a group thing, and I think like week 2 or something, she would ask a question to gather testimonials, right? Like, I don't remember what the question was.
I'll never remember that.
Yeah.
It was brilliant, but I'll never remember.
Yeah, it was 100%. Right. But it's testimonials shouldn't be left at the very end. Okay, you're leaving. Hey, I have more work for you to do.
Right. Right.
It happens all throughout the process. And I love that you are taking the 99% of the work out for them. That's brilliant.
So the fear, the confusion, the laziness, is that your summary of those things for that stage? Anything to add there?
I think, from a scared perspective, am I going to say the right thing? Or what if I don't want to? Or what if I'm not a good writer and I come across uneducated, or, whatever? There's a lot of fears that could be going into doing this. Or, will it not meet their expectation? Will it not be helpful?
That makes sense.
And confused, like, what should I say? Right? Like, I don't know what to say. And then they're thinking about it and overthinking about it. And then you take care of the lazy part, right? You took out all of the work of it. So yeah, I think that sums it up for that situation really nicely.
All right. Have we graduated? Are we done? Are we off now? Is it snack time?
We're done with that. Well, not almost. So.
Oh, that's right. You had something that you wanted to add.
I have, yes.
Do it.
getting ahead of these things, right? Once you can kind of identify, okay, here are the breakdowns where clients are quitting, with me most often. When I look at these situations, what bucket or which buckets are happening? Are they confused, quote unquote? Are they lazy? Are they scared of something? And if you can identify that ahead of time, then you can work on designing a solution. And so in the same book that I'm reading, it has this 4-step process that I think makes a lot of
Oh,
sense.
that's nice.
So the first step is define. So what behavior are you wanting to change? So is it something where, they're hitting fuck it week, ahead of time, or they're hitting it, but you don't want them to hit it. So how do we get them not to overextend themselves, right? So once you can define what behavior you want them to take is, you can work on the next step, which is diagnose. So what's holding them back from doing this thing? And then that will often come down to those 3 buckets. What are they confused about? What are they feeling lazy about? What are they scared of? And then you can design a solution. And the best way to design a solution is by collaborating with your clients. Because I feel like, and you can tell me if you agree with this or
I
not,
do.
but we get into this preachy job, right? We're the authority figure in this relationship, and here's what you need to do. I have all of the answers, right?
Right.
But that step, designing the solution, is a collaborative effort, because you may be the expert in exercise, nutrition, what have you, but they are the expert of their bodies, the way that they think, and their environment and their lives. And so you have to have both of those experts present in order to design a solution. And then the last step is deploy, test it out, and adjust as needed. And so get in part of the collaboration effort in designing this, you tell a client, like, look, here's what we're going to try. If it works, fantastic, but it may not. But we have to gather data to see, if it does or not. And if it doesn't, not a big deal. We'll go back to the drawing board. We'll come up with a new solution to test out. So you're getting ahead of, again, fear, laziness, confusion, all of that stuff. And then you throw it out there, you test it, and then move forward from there. So very simple. And I think most of us know this kind of in the back of our brains, but having that kind of step-by-step process laid out to look at when you're kind of in the moment and like, what do we do? Is helpful to refer back to.
And that's first of all, I love that 4-step process. Second, I love the fact that you gave an example of um, being curious in the exchange with a client, not approaching it from a writing reflex, like I know what to do, we're going to do this. It's so much better generally to say, hey, let's try this and let's figure out if we like it, right? Let's give this an opportunity and we'll see if we need to shift from here.
And it's okay if you don't.
It's
It
okay.
may work and you may decide you don't like it.
It's okay.
Just because it works doesn't mean it's, worth keeping.
Yeah, it's that's such a better route to go when you're working with another human, and you want to do it in a way that doesn't feel oppressive for them, right? Dictating can be a real problem in coaching. Collaborating is always awesome. It's always awesome. And it'll invite people to bring ideas to you, right? Because you got to remember, folks, these people see you on Instagram lifting your weights or ripping your shirt off, or Amber's delts and her showered hair. And that's intimidating for them, right? Like if you think you've got imposter syndrome after 3, 4, 5 years of coursework and classes and probably 10 or 15 years of exercise experience, I don't know what makes us think that the people that approach us are not feeling deeply imperfect and to a certain extent unworthy of interacting with you. They've got these folks, they've got us perched up on Mount Olympus. And when you dictate, it just makes everything so much hard. You want to bring them out of the shell, right? And not separate them with the shield of your perfection. That's all I'm going to say about that, Amber. I could go on a rant here, but it's unnecessary. And also, I'm really overdue for snacks, so I don't want to
Oh,
get into
hey. Well, we don't want a hangry.
absolutely, absolutely
A hangry Ren. That would not be Whoops.
Sounds like really shitty to me. I wouldn't want that. This is the point where I'm supposed to say, do we have another episode, Amber?
I'm going to recommend episode 118. Your competition is Netflix.
Awesome.
If you think there's a lot of competition and it's costing you clients, you're right, but it's just not the competition that you're thinking of. So in this episode, you'll figure out, what you're struggling with in sales calls and what's costing you there.
This has been one hell of a bang up episode you guys just witnessed. I'm Jonathan Goodman, and stay classy, Oaxaca, Mexico.